I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996, I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
The Pope and Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go on.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I'm a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Oh, hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back, you Already Dead heads, to another Already Dead, your favorite weekly live call-in show. Sorry, I was a little delayed there. Sorry, I was dancing. I was getting into the show, as I do. But yeah, we have plenty to go through. It's another wild world, a wild week in the world. Absolutely nuts. But I'm pleased to be joined by you guys. We'll have the phone lines back up, so if you guys want to chip in, whatever you guys have to contribute to the weird world that we're currently residing in, seemingly on the precipice of a nuclear holocaust. Lots weird world we're living in. I think like hell, we are literally at a time where they have like betting markets, and they are betting on the nuke. This is like modern day Strangelove, where we have gambling addicts that are incentivizing the destruction, nuclear destruction. So that's great.
Poly market bets for Trump's State of the Union, and it started exactly as far as Trump's speech, at 9/11, which I didn't realize at first, and I thought that was kind of strange and symbolic, and obviously I think some degree of occultism involved, but. Yeah, I don't know, buddy. The bloodthirsty genocidal war pigs are at it again, right? And it feels like, I don't know, most people aren't focusing on what has been just disgustingly referred to as collateral damage, right? Just the civilian casualties that are mounting in the ongoing conflict. And I think as of last night, or what is officially accepted as the average in terms of what the authorities are credibly, apparently, I don't know how much we can believe the numbers, but we have a total civilian death statistic at least 1,205 civilians, and that includes around 200 children. Apparently the totality is 194, and this is already surpassing the recorded, just as far as the record statistics of the previous 12-day conflict involving Iran and Israel and the U.S. So, yeah, I think approximately 1,190 casualties in that conflict, but not at all surprised by what we're witnessing. And once again, I think I alluded to it last week, but I mean, the U.S. and Israel straight up bombed Gandhi Hospital in Tehran. And I mean, this is over 200 people in an elementary school and gym were also targeted and amounted to collateral damage. And I believe there was even this mass grave that a picture was taken, where essentially you have a mass gravesite of children killed at the elementary school in Minab, Iran.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like 160 plus in the
By
mass
a
grave.
Tomahawk missile, which we have video of now. So
it's so sad, man.
Which is only owned. The only people who have Tomahawk missiles, I believe, are the U.S., Great Britain, and I think Australia. I think that's it. But despite that, we had President Trump admitting it was a Tomahawk, but saying, other countries, it's a pretty generic item. Lots of people, it could have been Iran, trying to cast aspersions to Iran. I do want to throw in, you kind of talking about the civilian toll. We're kind of already going into full-on World War II vibes in the sense of attacking civilian infrastructure. We've already been attacking water salinization plants. Now, I know the game will always probably be like, well, that was Israel. Well, we fucking started this war together. But even then, even with the Manab school, that was the U.S., and then we've also been bombing oil fields, which are literally creating like a hazardous environment, like actual black oil rain. Yeah. Like
falling on Tehran.
Like, this is war crime shit. Like, this is crazy. And it's even creepier, like with the Manab school, like the out, like if we're assuming that this wasn't an intentional move, is that this was likely, there's a good chance this could be some sort of AI targeting thing. I know a lot of people have been throwing around that I guess I think it was Israel. I can't remember which one of their multiple neighbors that they're fighting, that they had this incident where, because they've been, for a while, it's acknowledged, they've been using AI for their targeting packages. That they I guess they've been bombing certain locations based on with using AI. And so think about if you wanted to bomb police, which I guess they've been in certain areas killing police. And finding some way to twist that. But now let's think you were using AI. And let's say there happens to be a place called Police Park, but for whatever reason it's called Police Park because it's not at all related or tied to the police. I don't really know why they call it. They just did. I mean, Martin Luther King Boulevard doesn't have Martin Luther King living at it, so in everywhere where they have one. So same idea, but AI being the retarded fucking piece of shit that it is, it's going to go, oh, Police Park. If you're kind of selling it, oh, police are A-OK, those are good targets, then it's going to go, oh, well, bomb this park. This is Police Park. And that's actually happened. That I can't remember where that was. That's been a situation. So point being is this, I guess this school, the Manab school, was at one point sort of connected to the some IRGC something or other, but that was an old thing. Oh my God. And so I guess it's also so this easily could be seen as some sort of AI mistake or an outdated mistake of some sort. This could have been decades old strike packages they had just sitting around that no one really, looked into. So, I mean, let's be real. These are battle plans that have been written up for forever. Right. So, I was
thinking maybe even outdated intelligence of some kind, which often happens in red conflict war zones, I guess. But I found it strange and just kind of fascinating that as soon as the conflict was given the green light and the bombs began to fall, you had basically Western broadcasts interrupted the Iranian state television channels and essentially just hacked and replaced them with messages directly from Netanyahu and Trump. And I think it was kind of underreported, but just imagining that happening, if any foreign nation were to attack your country from abroad, obviously you would just be watching CBS, and all of a sudden your Iranian regime television is hacked, and Trump is on your TV and streaming to you live a message to the Iranian people, telling them, one, to support them, obviously, and that it was time to back their nation and essentially overthrow the current regime. So it's almost like, I don't know, it's just such a dystopian a thing to imagine happening is the point I'm making. Basically, it's just there's no level, they're unwilling to go. And as far as I saw Uncle Ted say, where's Netanyahu? Yeah. I think that's a poignant question at this very moment, and I am wondering myself. Although I will say, it seems like a lot of these, I don't know, clickbaity articles and sources on social media aren't providing much documentation and primary source evidence of the disappearance or potential Iranian missile strikes that have taken out certain high priority targets within the Israeli government. And I think, as always, it's usually, if it sounds too good to be true, more often than not, it definitely seems to be a little too good to be true.
If it sounds too good to be true, and it's a pedophile telling you it, then maybe.
Yeah, take some pause and remain skeptical, because I would imagine that they're just trying to, I don't know, over emotionally trigger you in the fog of war, which is very easy in this moment, and something they rely upon and will consistently exploit. So I think people should just be wary and remind themselves how often in the I think especially in the more infancy of a conflict as far as as it's gearing up, but especially when it's in its height, just after it's been given the green light, you have this overwhelming flood of propaganda that comes from these usual sources and suspects and puppets in the mainstream media of Modern Mockingbird, and they're just
I have the clip. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I have the clip dialed up. I do think it's just for those who didn't. I did make a reference there, and I guess not everybody gets it. We were talking before the show. This is what you get if you're a before show feller. You get a little bit more context. But here's Scott Ritter. We could play this real quick. I guess just 45 seconds. But Scott Ritter has a storied past. To be clear, I don't know for certain he's a pedophile, but if I was going to put money on it, I probably would. So for those understand, I know there's a lot of people who put up for him and say that there's some deep conspiracy, and he was an enemy of the state, but sometimes enemies of the states are also pedophiles, and then they become controlled op. So just saying, two things can be true at the same time. No, I don't know. I've never delved deep enough into the story. Trust me, I want to believe. I've always been the one that said they're going to put child porn on people's computers, and I'm sure they do that. I'm pretty sure it happened 2 or 3 times with Scott, though. So it kind of gets to a level of implausibility. We're come on, dude. Are they really fucking ragging you this hard? I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they're just running you through the ringer over and over and over again.
A little more like the pedophile who cries wolf, man. Yeah, I don't know.
What the fuck do I know? I mean, I am the first person to jump at. The feds can drive some bullshit. But anyways, sorry. I just want to hazard that. I also think we should probably seat this too with some of the. There's been lots of discussions from people that kind of fit the Ritter mold, and I don't mean pedophile. I mean people that are these military-esque sort of the OSINT people, whatever the online intel herder military guys that might be a little bit more even then, some of those are kind of still warmongers in their own way, but maybe more like herder China, but we shouldn't be fighting Russia or whatever. Not saying that's even Ritter. I'm just saying there's this certain type of influencer out right now that are running with lots of things all these people are dead, all of our Middle East bases are decimated, which I don't know. I'm completely open to the idea that we've gone radio silent and things are way worse. I actually do think things are worse than what they're saying, but I also think that you got to hazard yourself to not fall into easily this idea of I guess not that any of us want all of our bases and tons of wanton death and destruction overseas or whatever. But I'm just saying just because you kind of had these assumptions that things were going to be bad or just don't fall into it. And also bear in mind, there's sometimes things aren't quite what they seem. But let's watch this video. There's a couple crazy claims, and then maybe we can also focus on how there actually is some truth to sort of the vein of what's going on here, but it seems like people have run with it. But let's watch this.
Last night, the Iranians struck the home of Benjamin Netanyahu. They killed his brother. They struck the home of Ben Gvir. He is seriously wounded, may not survive. Iran is going to start to take out the totality of Israel's leadership. This is the reality of this conflict. Israel played the regime change game. It's going to be the Israelis that are going to be paying the highest price. The Iranians are no longer wearing kid gloves. They've taken them off, and they're coming in bare knuckle.
They're reporting it. This is interesting. I looked it up as soon as you said it. The BBC is reporting it as Ben Gvir was in a car accident last night. Does that surprise you?
They can report it any way they want.
All right, now Austin, you were telling me before the show though that because I covered this on my morning show, and I mean, I'm a goddamn bloodhound. I pointed out immediately, don't forget about this guy, and you always got to be careful where you're getting information from. So just throwing that out there, and also hazarding caution. So I did throw it out there with that in mind, with that caveat. But I did cover it, like, hey, this is what some people out there are saying. Maybe it's what's going on. You're saying that this sounds like a whole crock of shit. I mean, he did say at the end there that the BBC was reporting, I guess, supposedly that his brother was in a car accident. What's going on there, Austin? Is it complete and utter horse shit, or what do you think?
As if there are multiple publications that are considered, more mainstream, but also some that are alternative sources, but not quite, under acknowledged as like a legitimate source, as far as I'm saying. This specifically is being reported as misinformation as far as these reports of Itamar Ben-Gvir, Netanyahu's brother. And then I just recently saw Netanyahu himself basically is alleged to have been apparently targeted and also killed in an Iranian airstrike in Tel Aviv, which to me sounds absurd. I mean, what is the Iron Dome for, by the way? It seems like it's not very much performing at just as far as it is designed and promoted to effectively perform in this very efficient and effective way, which obviously we've seen many different examples where clearly, foreign missile strikes have seemingly made it through the defense system. So I don't really know what to make of that, but I will say that from the Hindustan Times, which is an interesting publication I've read from a few different times, and doesn't seem to publish clickbaity articles that just for the sake of spreading misinformation. So I definitely think there's something to this, and I will also add that it's not isolated to this one publication that's pushing back and claiming that I'm not one to fact check. I think it's essentially, I don't know, just the terminology and the language is a little bit gay to use if you're just trying to. I'm objectively pursuing the truth, as I say often. And so the point being is that the claim is viral posts falsely claim an Iranian strike in Tel Aviv killed Idu Netanyahu and injured Itamar Ben-Gvir. No official reports or confirmation support them. The ongoing conflict in the Middle East has seen a surge of misinformation as unverified claims and clips do the rounds on social media. And I have seen this where it seems like, I don't know, you'll get video footage of what they claim is, I don't know, occasionally it's either an active war zone and the conflict playing out, or it will be civilian protesters or something to that effect. And they act as if they're reacting to the ongoing current moment, but in reality, it's a out of context and misrepresentation of a prior event from years past and things of that nature. And so it's definitely something I've witnessed happening. But as far as like these social media posts, I'm not seeing any legitimate, credible source on social media actually being the direct kind of just as far as like providing any sort of fundamental source that you can tie back to an official report that's documenting this in an authoritative way. So I think it's something to remain skeptical of. Obviously, what the claims are is that you have apparently Itamar Ben-Gvir is allegedly being struck by a missile strike and also hit by a car, and these are competing narratives that are essentially being presented to the public right now. And this is after his home was allegedly caught fire or something to that effect. So it sounds like an arsonist to some extent was involved. I don't know if that claim is even legitimate. So again, we're flooded with disinformation. It's something that we're going to have to wade through on our own and see what comes of this, because I won't view this as an official report until we have legitimate confirmation and obviously a follow-up report. but yeah, what they're saying is that there are no official, essentially this is a hoax, and that Edu Netanyahu also is not dead, and neither is Netanyahu himself. So if that's the case, and then also they're saying that the report of the car accident isn't legitimately credible either. So if that's true, then what do you make of this? It's essentially just, as I said before, as terrible as it sounds, too good to be true, because this is an imaginary cartoonish world where the genocidal war pigs and pedophile occupied government actually endure direct consequences from an ongoing conflict that they gave the green light to. I don't believe that's the case, and I haven't ever really seen much prior reference points to implicate that essentially happening very often. So it would be an extraordinary event if this were true, is the point I'm trying to make, I guess.
Yeah, but there is some grain, I guess, of truth, I guess, maybe that's not the right way to put it, that kind of gives cover for this. I guess Bezalel Smotrich, his son, actually did. I think I may have covered him properly this morning. Said he was dead. Now I've seen that reported a bunch all over the place that he's dead. But apparently it's, as of right now, I don't know if there's maybe something new here. I was looking for it before the show. Apparently Bezalel Smotrich's son, that's the Israeli finance minister, also a lesser demon, I believe. But apparently his son sustained some damage, but his wasn't like a inside the heart of Israel type thing, like a targeted attack. Apparently it was, essentially as part of their Lebanon offensive that they've got going on, because of course, as soon as they start off an Iran war, they completely renege on basically everything when it comes to the Gaza stuff, and so you're reneging on their deal stuff. We also got things kicking up in the West Bank. They're picking things back up in Syria, in the occupied area, along the Nitra or whatever, I forget which area, but whoever they're the demilitarized zone that is now occupied by Israel. That was clearly before like a neutral area. Now they want another one, encroaching on they got Syria, Lebanon. So one, as part of one of these numerous things, he got some shrapnel that I guess tore through his stomach. So I mean, the way they're talking about it, though, it sounds like he's okay for now. So I don't know. So we do have an attack of actual, like, of someone of note, especially someone that's a kind of one of the seminal villains of this story. If you're those who know the players of this game over there in Israel, he is like below, like he's like, it's like, was it below Netanyahu? It's like, and even then, these guys are actually probably worse than Netanyahu in a sense. You got Smotrich, and then Ben Gvir is the other one. And really, it's those two. Those are the two big ones. Aside from Netanyahu, and even then, they're way worse. So point being is, it's kind of like, I think this could have played some part to it. People saw Smotrich's son got sustained some damage, and then from there, people then kind of like, you get some inklings. You're like, oh my God, look. People may in their mind fill in the blanks and like, oh, they're targeting, and then from there, it kind of like, almost manifests itself to a certain degree. Obviously, there's liars and bad actors in the mix, but you can kind of see how this vein of information sort of gets spread, because there's sort of truth to it, but even then, it's not like a targeted thing. I mean, although don't get me wrong, from my understanding, Israel is getting royally screwed. And it seems like that maybe there's a decent chance that maybe they may waver here. I mean, on the Israeli side of things, hopefully they do, since they seem to be the ones running the show. So I don't know if you saw that apparently with Netanyahu, or Trump himself told the Times of Israel that in order for this to end, it would have to be like an agreed upon thing between him and Netanyahu, essentially taking the equal partners route as opposed to, bitch, I'm paying for everything, so right. I get to determine it. So basically leaning right into being kind of led by the nose by Israel and not really. It's kind of, I know, pretty disgraceful, really.
Oh, definitely. But also seems to, it's almost as if they're playing both sides of this narrative as far as Marco Rubio and Netanyahu and even Mike Johnson. I think Tom Cotton, these various prominent personalities that were coming out and saying the quiet part out loud, basically that Netanyahu forced Trump's hand in a way. And just as far as admitting that although they did try and package it in some sort of dishonest attempt of claiming that it was a necessary, what's it called, when you orchestrate a strike just before basically you're attacked, right? Damn it, what's the term? When you know what I'm saying, as far as what the strategic terminology is for
preemptive.
Preemptive strike. Thank you. And so the point being is that they were labeling it as a preemptive strike for defensive measures, and obviously alleging that this was in no way a declaration of war. It was a defensive conflict in order to make certain that they didn't effectively endure casualties without any sort of consequence or get out in front of. They claimed Iran was going to go forward with the airstrikes no matter what, which is seemingly laughable at this point, seeing how measured and reserved Ayatollah Khomeini was, because it seemed as if he was well aware of the consequences, being that if he were to do anything overt and hostile and aggressive, he would seemingly pay the price, which is exactly what happened. And I mean, it was over 40 members of the highest levels of leadership in Iran that were effectively slaughtered and assassinated in the early days of this conflict, and when the original strikes were happening. And I think there was even this footage of Trump saying that all of these various leaders they considered replacing Khomeini with were all dead, according to the intelligence. And just in this very casual, mild-mannered way, acting as if it was just, again, the cost of war in a way. But I did think that his willingness to attempt to get out in front of, in a very sloppy manner, to get out in front of the oil prices and things of that nature just after the Strait of Hormuz closure. And
the economic whiplash he did, the essentially how he came out and said he signaled to that he played this trick, like where a lot of people have played the thing, and I did it to myself. I missed it until after the show. I missed I saw the larger play at hand. I covered in the morning show this whole. I mean, it was kind of this funny clip that a lot of people were sharing around where he goes, he goes, somebody asked him. He said, "Oh, you're saying that you haven't won enough yet, but now," because it's what he said in his latest little talk that he had. And then one of the people asked him, he's like, "But you just earlier, I believe it was the same day, said that it's basically over or something like that. I forget exactly." And he's like, or it's just getting, he's like, "So which is it?" He's like, "Well, I guess you could say both." Like, so he's like, do this, like, so his reasoning is like, well, it's the start of something, of, this new regime or whatever, but it's basically the end of, so like he essentially seeded out that it's like, we're pretty much done, before. And there's some memes people put like pretty much done or something as for mission accomplished. And that was the early day signal to the market, in which was able to kind of get them to go, "Oh my God, oh geez, he's going to taco, he's going to chicken out, hell yeah!" And everyone, so the oil prices took a little bit of a dip, but they have come back with a vengeance in the meantime. So it seemed like a short little trick, but that's not going to last too long. So I mean, prices are already not plummeting, but skyrocketing pretty damn quickly. Right. So, but yes, and he's also telling these fucking these private merchants out here to say, "Oh, don't be pussies, just go for it." They've already attacked like 10 tankers, but like Don't worry about it, guys. Just do it. It's almost as if they're begging someone to make this worse. So,
I really do think this is how you strategically control the narrative in a way, and as far as controlling the outcome of people's interpretation of what's playing out and the economic consequences of all of this. But I think strategically speaking, as far as these various reports that I'm seeing, it was. I think it was Trump himself seriously considering with a high level of interest in sending ground troops into Iran, and obviously Pete Hegseth comes out and reinforces that idea. And I saw that Israel was bombing, as I told you privately, Western Iran in order to allegedly open up a path for CIA-backed Kurdish forces to invade. And all that I thought of was the Iraq War, and obviously considering when the Kurds were dropped pamphlets or leaflets from the U.S. and the Western allies, and basically urging them to go forward with attempting to attack Saddam, right, and in the oil fields at that point, and they were entirely hung out to dry and just massacred in that area. As far as like, it's so crazy how many times we've hung the Kurdish forces out to dry as a proxy or an asset in a proxy war, and just witnessing history repeat itself. It's just something that it's hard to wrap your head around, that the vast majority have such a short memory, as we've discussed many different times. And you saw that we basically got tagged, or I think it was, we were both tagged in a listener tagged us in this Max Blumenthal post that was basically offering this strange and ridiculous new hyper recycled Mockingbird media phrase that they're relying upon in the moment to package the conflict. This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain, was the phrase. And I have it pulled real quick. I figure we could play it briefly just to
all I can say is get ready for it feels like, obviously I don't want to call this, but it feels like COVID part 2. Yes. It literally feels like signaling we're going to see shortages or whatever.
Absolutely.
But not necessarily oil. But a lot of people don't realize that causing these oil issues and even that also goods travel across the Strait of Hormuz too. It's not just oil. So oil prices go up. That causes everything else to go up. That also causes other things not be able to travel there. This causes all sorts of upsets in the market. And the next thing you know, you can't poop because there's no toilet paper in any of the grocery stores. So
Operation Epstein's Fury is real and ongoing, and we are witnessing it unfold in real time. And I think it's also being labeled as Trump's Armageddon. And Pete Hegseth had something to say about that, almost reinforcing this manufactured false prophecy in a way. But we'll get into that just after this clip. I figured it's funny. We don't have to play the whole thing because it's obnoxious when you just have repeating bullshit propaganda in your ear, but at least see the point in a way.
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
Short-term pay for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain, yes, but we've got some long-term gain. Short-term spike for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain for American consumers. We may have to deal with that in the short term. Short-term and temporary.
Temporary, short-term pain.
It's going to suck in the short term.
Some short-term pain.
You get the point, obviously, and I had to share that with Sam and Brad last night as well, because it's just emblematic of what we see so very often, not just in regard to military conflicts, but COVID, right? It's just brought to you by Pfizer, as the homie who linked us in this post said. Basically, it's that all over again. The green light go, 33 cases. It's just this repetitive nature of, it's not only symbolic, layered in with these occult, kind of ideological practices involved, but it's almost I think I've had people, kind of allude to it potentially being almost a almost like this clandestine way of offering, let's just say the offering the essentially, you're pretty much tipping your hat to the other individuals who are basically involved in this strategic, just, I don't know, secret society or whatever you want to say, that's going forward with this strange agenda. But it does seem as if it's made, just perfectly made ready for public consumption. So I'm not necessarily on board for it being like this actual coded language that they're potentially using to yeah, I don't know, just outwardly in public, sort of have this secret exposure to the other members of the network. I don't know. It's almost like, hey, we're one of you, or one of us sort of mentality in a way, but it could be complete ridiculous, bogus, just an attempt to explain it away, because obviously we have to make some sort of logic and rationale out of what we're fed by this ridiculous war machine. And so I'm just only attempting to figure out what applies most and what seemingly actually seems most plausible in terms of how they kind of deliberately package these messages with the layered in coded language and numerology involved. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.
I did want to show you something real quick. I just noticed this. I'm paying attention. I want to be very clear, but I do keep a tab up on a few different tabs to see what's going on. You never know when it's like, oh, this or that. I saw just happened to flash across my screen. Apparently, the head of Mossad is dead.
They're all dead, man.
Yeah, they're all dead.
Oh my God.
Yep, dead.
I guess Israel's just wiped out, dude.
Yep.
Our problems are over. We can move on into the new world order, and no one will give a shit because Netanyahu's gone.
Oh, by the way, that's bullshit.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, so bullshit. The head of Mossad is still alive. That's one I can comfortably say that's a bummer.
Yeah,
like that's a real bummer. I'm comfortable with that one. The other ones, I'm like, I don't know. I know, like, I don't want to wish death on that, but no, Mossad, you fuck you. But no, he's still among the living. He's still among the living. I'd say I'm probably there with Netanyahu's brother. I could just safely assume he probably sucks. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe his brother's cool, but
it's hard to believe that Itamar Ben-Gvir is dead as well, as much as it's possible. I would definitely believe a car accident, which would probably be more in line with some sort of Michael Hastings strategy than a legitimate car accident if it were true. But I certainly don't believe that any of these prominent personalities are actually being directly struck by an Iranian missile in Tel Aviv. I just think that's a little bit ridiculous. But we saw, I believe it was, who's the homie with the Bobby Hill profile pic on Twitter. Anyway, he tagged us in another post of the Pentagon allegedly burning through
no mud, no lotus at channel_Ocho. Not that I think
cool.
he cares for the shout out, but I do appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, cool guy for sure. But he tagged us in a post that basically said that the Pentagon, it was alluding to the overwhelming cost of this conflict so far. And as we've mentioned before, very much in its infancy as well. But allegedly they burned through $5.6 billion in just munitions in the first 2 days of the Iran war. So that's, it feels like that's even more than what is being monitored by these statistical trackers on because there are multiple that seem to be actually tracking and monitoring the overall cost of the conflict so far. And if that's true, then it it completely exceeds the number that I'm seeing, which allegedly is $155 million a day. And as of now, it's around $3.9 billion, which
I was seeing low balls of $1 billion a day at some of the articles I was reading. So
yeah,
and even that was admitting that was like only for like strictly like expenses, or actually I think that was strictly destruction or something.
see, I'm wondering how they sort of break up the statistical data monitoring and which let's just say which monitor or tracking mechanism is actually tracking every single factor involved with the development of the military conflict and let's just say the overall cost of even the missiles themselves, which I don't know how many, it's not like these are itemized, right? So
yeah. Well, these interceptors are using to shoot down like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 drones or multi-million-dollar missiles.
Yeah.
So like it's just the math doesn't math. It's
no, it does not.
This is how they win. This is how they win right here. So
truly, man,
they just need to survive. But luckily we have managed though through all of this. We managed to. It technically wasn't a regime change, but we were able to change out the leadership to get someone in there much more amenable to us. Much more willing to work with us. We went from Ayatollah Khamenei, to Ayatollah Khamenei. That's what we went to. Back, but with a vengeance. I'm sure this will go great. Who his father, mother, sister, wife, and other family members that we're not directly thinking of were all killed in the strike that killed his father. And they're trying to kill him. Trump's already made threats to him. And funny enough, he was also the one that before he was selected, he was making a point to be like, he's not a good choice or whatever. And kind of fronting that he needed to be involved in the talks. So very clear that Iran sent a big middle finger over to them, said, screw you, you don't tell us what to do. Which even more so to that point, like, the original Khamenei had even preached to like not to pass it on hereditary, but I think it was more. I think it had more to do. It manifested probably more out of the idea that Trump was like no, and there is like a symbolic nature to this. And
as a reaction, I would imagine that the vast majority would just be on board. It wouldn't take a whole lot if I would imagine.
One more thing before we move on. One thing I mentioned in this show that we can't let us this morning that we can't let escape. The way fatwas work, it disappeared with the original Khamenei. So the fatwa on nukes. So because for those who are unaware, we for the longest time with this whole Iran thing, there was always for those who cared to actually learn anything about the ordeal, the Iranians. I mean, a lot of people, when you talk to fucking boomers, when they get confronted with this, like, well, they're liars and they're deranged. And they just want to destroy the Jew or whatever. And so they're lying about their religious fatwa or whatever. Which, whatever, maybe, but at least you got to admit that it exists. But there was a fatwa, which is a religious edict on not having nuclear weapons. Now they were good with nuclear energy, but something to do with the reasoning of it's not ethical or religiously permissible to use nukes in an offensive manner, which totally makes sense. I don't think you really need to do a whole lot of mental gymnastics to figure out how pretty much any major religion could probably come to that conclusion. Right. But theirs came to that conclusion, and it is an actual religious edict sent out by their religious leader, which is the Ayatollah, because they see him as a religious leader, I guess something akin to like the Pope. But that is now gone. So I guess you kind of almost see it like a religious executive order. So with his son in place, it's kind of on him. So I know he could do something really big, but even then, he almost has no real reason to reissue the fatwa, because even if he does intend to following that religious path, and that we're not going to do that, there's no real from a diplomatic perspective, and like it would make more sense to to not state out loud that we would never take nukes. You know what I mean? Because that's sort of giving away your hand in a sense that like, hey, we won't do this thing. So, but I don't know. We'll see. It's a bit of a wild card. Yeah.
Oh yeah, But according to Trump and his current administration, I mean, it's Trump's Armageddon, my friend, and in the name of God, we will strike them down is essentially the narrative forming, and I think it's a last ditch dying effort in a way to obviously this is a manufactured false prophecy. We've pointed to it many times. I believe it's being heavily exaggerated by the current administration because it seems to be the only option left on the table in this very desperate attempt to leverage their base into a defensive posture regarding Operation Epstein's Fury, right? And this ongoing war with Iran. I honestly believe that's a huge part of it, just in terms of understanding the Zionist project and the history of how the permanent establishment who's ushering in the New World Order, or whatever you want to call it, it's a globalist government. And that's truly the end game and result they would hope to facilitate. And honestly, realizing that they have been intentionally walking this fine line between religion and politics for generations at this point. And this is a line that's being strategically blurred over time with the intention of ethically sequestering a vital sect of society blindly subservient to the state. And until people become willing enough to acknowledge that fact, I mean, come on, what better way to consolidate power than to actually convince your subordinates that God is the state? I mean, that's truly what is the end result of this, and the only way to come to a conclusion if you're attempting to engage in this level of propaganda and embrace a narrative that would help justify such extraordinary consequences, including the extinguishing of human life at a overwhelming rate. That, again, how many Americans are honestly willing enough to approach this subject with an open mind and consider the implication of our taxpayer dollars supporting this insane just willingness to sacrifice blind. I mean, as far as like the casualties of civilians in Iran, I mean, I think I saw Owen Benjamin say that he said, quote, by the way, so it's not me committing hate speech, but he said, no one in Iran or no Iranian ever called me a nigger. That's what he said straight up. And I was just like, oh my God, that is a perfect way to make that point, right? Which is just what on earth do you have against the average Iranian person? You know, and with that alone, how could you in any sort of sense find yourself in support of this?
But it's Austin, but consider how absolutely extravagant the hunts are over there. Like over in the Middle East, you got a large war-torn area. You get some tanks together, a few of your billionaire buddies. You sequester off an area. You go, hey, bub, don't let anybody pass this line. You don't really tell them what's going on. About 1,000 yards over. But then you go, you let the kids release the kids. Woo! Some boys and toys. We got some tanks. Don't do it, man. Can you imagine them bombing down the tank? Fucking just little children just naked streaking across the desert. So I guess that's my segue to our talk about Pritzker. What you want to talk about it, Austin?
Well, I think we're almost intermission. It would probably be better to couch that until just after, because I think it's just there's a few additional connections to the Pritzker family that I think are well worthwhile and pulling up, and that includes this apparently record-setting connection to Jennifer Pritzker, who is the world's first ever transgender billionaire. And we're talking the level of connection to what looks like some sort of modern Gladio operative, but also, or operation, but also Ukraine. She has a very strong connection and tie-in militarily to supporting the Ukrainian conflict, and not at all surprising, but it doesn't end there. That's just honestly the most fringe points attached to the entire Pritzker family and their connection to Epstein and just the political bureaucracy that is the permanent establishment. It's a perfect example of that. But before we, if you're cool with that, we'll just couch it until after intermission, because there's only one other thing I was hoping we could cover, which leans heavily into the manufactured false prophecy, which is Pete Hegseth. Right, he comes out and almost reinforces that Trump's Armageddon in this sort of sense, which obviously we covered last week. Right, the fact that, I mean, the Pentagon is essentially using language to embolden the troops by couching it in this biblical terminology, as if this is some sort of a divine conflict ordained by God. And it's a strange thing to actually use that sort of language in this context. But again, we have the Secretary of War. Thank God it's no longer the Secretary of Defense, and we've removed that naive veil, hopefully permanently, from people interpreting, I don't know, just the romanticized language that they attach to these federal institutions and organizations that commit war crimes on a daily basis, and somehow convince the population that it's only in measures of practicing defense on behalf of the American people and protecting the homeland. But yeah, I don't know. What did Pete Hegseth have to say in his deliberate framework and misrepresentation of biblical scripture? Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Listen to this piece of shit, man. And honestly, it only further lends credibility to did you see Lindsey Graham during the State of the Union? I mean, when Trump started to reference the potential, what he was considering basically green lighting a military conflict in the near future, and he was alluding to that fact. And Lindsey Graham basically just he essentially came in his pants, right? If you were watching that footage, it's disgusting, and he's far too excited, in my opinion. And to imagine a world where a potential military conflict gets you so excited in that way, it just is perfectly emblematic of who you are and a reflection on your
that
character.
Little motherfucker was coaching Netanyahu on how to properly do diplomacy with Trump in order to get his Iran war, and he admitted this recently, and he was saying that he was talking to their. And I think there was some Iranian leader that chimed in on this and said that, like, if this was in our country, they'd be going to jail for treason, and which is true. Like, I mean, it's insane. He was talking about essentially revealing intel and stuff too. I mean, if you get into the details of it, so you're like, dude, what the fuck? But they talk about Israel as if they're like at the hip with us. They're as Huckabee says, that's our wife.
He said, yeah, exactly. And Lindsey Graham basically said as much. I mean, he said, God bless Israel. We should move all our stuff to Israel. And that was his signing off message, which is just absurd. But yeah, listen to Pete Hegseth attempt to convince the American public that this is in the name of God.
The chairman and I, having just returned from Dover last night, our troops and their families and the enormous sacrifice that they make is certainly heavy on my mind. So I'll close with scripture, drawing strength from Psalm 144. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. He is my loving God and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield, in whom I take refuge. May the Lord grant unyielding strength and refuge to our warriors, unbreakable protection to them and our homeland, and total victory over those who seek to harm them. And amen. God bless our troops and this mission. Mr. Chairman, over.
So that alone should offend anyone who claims to believe in God or have some sort of understanding of what it is to call themselves a Christian. That's that's overtly.
We're just sending them to Jesus, Austin.
Yeah,
letting him sort them out.
Yeah, honestly, that's the claim here. But I think legitimately, we have to see what Lindsey Graham said just briefly, because again, it's like a total of 20 seconds. But listen to this lizard person, blood-soaked monster.
All the anti-Semites to all the isolationists. I don't believe. Forget it.
That's
not
us.
With you. I'm with Israel. I will be.
He's not with us. Good, Lindsey. I'm not with you or your ladybugs, you piece of shit. All right, one more time.
All the anti-Semites to all the isolationists. I don't believe. Forget it. I'm not with you. I'm with Israel. I will be with Israel to our dying day. They're the best ally we could hope for. So we have a commander-in-chief in President Trump, who I think is Ronald Reagan plus. All the anti-Semites to all the isolationists. I don't believe.
All right.
Forget it. I'm not.
Is this just amazing? Like, honestly, it really is. And for anyone, this is a public representative of the United States. I mean,
treasonous.
Yeah, absolutely. How else could this be internalized?
Just insane. Well, I think probably a good time, Austin. What do you think? Go to intermission. Come back here in a few minutes.
I'm down. Give me 4 seconds, because I had one additional. It was this 4-second clip, and I thought the way he signed off was just ridiculous, and added to that clip that we just played, and then I'm ready to go.
God bless Israel. All right. We should move all our stuff to Israel. Thank you.
Just that? Okay, sorry.
God bless Israel. We should move all our stuff to Israel. Thank you.
I thought that was the clip. My bad. Yeah, it was wild. I don't know what the point of that one was. But guys, we're gonna go to intermission. Our phone lines are open now. Sorry, our producer had a big move recently, so he's getting all his stuff together. So we didn't have it ready right off the jump, but we got it ready now. So we're gonna go into our call-in portion of the show here in a moment. You can call us at 1-833-722-83323, 1-833-722-DEAD, if you can spell with numbers. And call in, hang out with us. If you're a patron, you guys have the opportunity to where you guys can come up as a video call in the second half of the show. You also get the little private chat where you can talk to us and hang out with us before and after the show. But we're going to play an outro, or not an outro, but an intermission. We'll be back in a few minutes. This is from Blunts for Jesus. Not an original one from our producer this week, so big ups to Blunts for Jesus. We should be back in the flow of things with an original come next week. But with that, we'll see you all in a few minutes. We'll be back. Call in, hang out with us. We have plenty more to talk about. We'll go for about another hour or so, and then we'll get the hell out of here. All right. See y'all in a few minutes. Enjoy this intermission.
From the Capitol to the White House, Freemasons throughout history have freely roamed the halls of power in Washington.
Freemasons first appeared in Europe around 1390 AD as a guild of stoneworkers, but over time, their mission and activities became increasingly shrouded in secrecy. Joining the Freemasons wasn't easy. There was a strict set of initiation rites and rituals. The higher a member rose in the organization, the more secrets he learned. Remarkably, 13 of the founding fathers of America belonged to the secret society.
Washington was very fond of and drawn to the symbols of Freemasonry. He was proud to be a Freemason.
Washington and fellow Freemason L'Enfant were also responsible for designing the Federal Triangle, an area with specific geometrical symbols built into the street plans of Washington, D.C.
Many of the landmarks, monuments, and memorials are linked really to Masonic symbolism.
The Freemasons were very instrumental in the building of the Washington Monument.
The Washington Monument is shaped like an Egyptian obelisk, an ancient symbol from Egypt, which connects to the pyramid, and another symbol from ancient Egypt, which we find on the $1 bill.
The United States, back in its infancy, was into these secret societies, and it was born of that.
Skull and Bones is one such network.
Founded in 1832, Skull and Bones is the oldest of Yale's many secret societies.
A known breeding ground for CEOs, Supreme Court justices, diplomats, and U.S. presidents.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Members of the Order dress up as the devil, the Pope, and a kind of Don Quixote character. Each initiate is led into a chamber where fellow members shout obscenities and abuse the new initiate. The initiates are told that they are superior beings and are part of a privileged elite who use war, terror, and famine to control Earth's human population.
What is the Bohemian Grove? Well, it's a kind of summer camp for the powerful, an all-male gathering in great secrecy.
Every year, 2,000 of the most powerful men in America descend upon a tiny town in California's wine country.
Pretty much a who's who of the elite. First up, we have U.S. presidents. Many of them have been members or guests at Bohemian Grove. Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan are two of the most notable. A lot of high-ranking officials have made appearances. People like Henry Kissinger. Then there's the business moguls, heads of major corporations and banks, like David Rockefeller, for example. There are also plenty of artists, writers, and musicians. Arnold Schwarzenegger has attended, Clint Eastwood, some very big names. They gather here for a few weeks of relaxation, networking, and some rather unusual rituals.
The retreat begins with an ornate ceremony called the cremation of care.
A boat known as the Ferry of Care contains an effigy in the shape of a body known as the Body of Care, and it is sent across a body of water to these dark, mysterious, hooded figures.
This effigy is placed at the feet of this 40-foot owl structure that's covered in moss and leaves, and it is set afire.
Bilderberg Group has affected you being chairman of the Fed?
Bohemian Grove? I was never a member of the Bohemian Grove.
What happened at the Bilderberg meetings?
The Bilderberg Group is a meeting of the most influential people in Europe and North America. Wall Street investors, business moguls, politicians, royalty.
The head of the International Monetary Fund, former Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner, the heads of Amazon.com, Google, and BP Oil, former General and CIA Director David Petraeus.
They're all coming together and keeping the media and everyone else out.
If you've never heard of the Bilderberg conference, don't be worried. I've been in the news business for about 2 decades. I'd never heard of it. That's because the organizers don't really want you to know about it. It is very secret.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations.
Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
Awesome. Sick intermission. Big credit to Blunts for Jesus. That's on Twitter. I think he's on Instagram too, but I don't know what it is on there. So good stuff. We'll be bringing on some patrons here in a second. Phone lines are open too, to remind you guys. So I guess just jump right into there. What do you think? What does boys and toys mean with the Pritzkers?
Well, I think the smoothest segue we could find is basically that you had these more recent DOJ releases of additional Epstein files, let's say, right? And it looks as if it seems like 95% I believe is what I saw. But before I get into that, the new files that were just released, right, I found to be fascinating because apparently they were mistakenly withheld. And these new Epstein files happen to include uncorroborated claims about Trump, which was that 13-year-old case, right, that we were talking about privately, and just seeing that these documents and files were allegedly withheld due to being incorrectly marked as duplicates, I just found to be a ridiculous narrative. But that seems to fit perfectly with this apparent reality of as soon as the bombing began and the Operation Epic Fury was given the green light, you had Google searches about the Epstein files plummet to 95% apparently is the statistic that has been quoted and cited after Trump started bombing Iran. So this is Google Trends data showing a significant decline in searches related to Epstein documents directly after the conflict began. So if you look at the Google Trend data, you have this sharp Epstein files interest drop coinciding with the war's escalation, dominating the global headlines and shifting the public focus from obviously the sex scandal and the revelations to geopolitical turmoil, which feels just very convenient. And we've seen it far too often as far as these strategically timed disclosures, which this one specifically felt like it could easily fall into that category because it's almost as if they would want to provide another spotlight on a more, let's just say, it's not quite the most credible case that is given the spotlight in this context. And I think that that's very much by design and also seemingly just it provides a sort of another avenue that they could point to, which could further discredit anyone who's attempting to push back and claim that the Epstein files are boring, I think is what some of the talking heads have labeled it as, and I forget who it was, Michael Tracy probably, but yeah, I can't.
I think
quite
it was
remember.
the Quillette chick.
Okay.
And then was it Matt Taibbi, I think, did as well, I think?
Matt Taibbi did?
I think so, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
He's the Twitter files. He's been glowing like the sun, man. I didn't quite look at him like that until the Twitter files were released, because he was so much, it's like a primary, it seemed like he was groomed for that moment. And he very much fulfilled his role.
But looking back, I mean, I never got someone who got too deep into it, but he was one of these characters that was kind of, I guess, almost like this paradigm I've talked about when it comes to influencers, like say like the Tim Pools of the world, where like they'll say some shit occasionally where you're like, whoa, that's pretty wild. But then you realize there's certain things that you're like, oh, you won't rock that. Like, so Matt Taibbi is the same way, like certain, let's be real, certain 6-pointed stars or whatever, when that comes into play kind of steers. So certain, like, you can play this game as if it's like, oh, well, these are the verboten topics for those who want to ride that line, especially of the old paradigm, ride that line of respectability. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it seems like that he was playing that riding the line of respectability, which I don't think that's going to float today. I mean, you could say he's some sort of compromise, perhaps, but you also could explain it as just like that's his business model. You know what I mean, too?
Yeah. Have you ever? I encourage everyone to go and read The Operators, or even as an audiobook. It's one of the most enjoyable listens you could ever imagine. It's not a very long book, but it's that Michael Hastings book about the terror wars. Whenever he was invited into the press bubble, as he described it, and essentially they felt comfortable around him because they thought he understood the game and was a willing player, but he was basically just trying to make them feel comfortable, but also sitting there thinking, oh my God, I can't believe how outward and overt and blatant these individuals are behaving around me, not realizing that it was commonplace if you were invited into the press bubble by an individual asset who is trusted within the network of right. I think it was just the individual who was managing the press and media for Stan McChrystal, right, the runaway general, who that's the name of the article that Michael Hastings would write following his time embedded in that press bubble with McChrystal's entourage, and the way in which he describes McChrystal going and meeting, as far as like going and to the front lines in a red combat zone that was basically in this sort of mutiny state is how he describes it, whenever they were rendered ineffective and basically sitting ducks whenever Obama changed the rules of engagement and wouldn't allow them to shoot until fired upon and things of that nature. And as soon as that happened, the casualties began to mount, and these guys were just sitting there waiting to die. Like, that was basically the environment they were in. And this is in no way a defense of the conflict. It's just the reality of just the mismanagement, but also the goal, the strategic goals involved. They in no way were seeking a victory in terms of what does victory look like. And that's what I found fascinating about Michael Ware, the conflict journalist, and his documentary, This Is What Winning Looks Like, because I felt like that title alone almost captured the essence of these young kids thrust onto the front lines and enduring just these just extraordinary levels of consequences based on just the let's just say the policies that are being thrust upon them as well by the current administration, being the Obama regime. But anyway, I just feel like potentially he got the call, right? Maybe Matt Taibbi got the Michael Hastings call, and he felt like he didn't want to potentially blow up in a fiery car crash on Sunset Boulevard at like 2 a.m. or whatever the time was, which seems to have been obviously the FBI vault documents alluding to the techniques involved and how they strategically hacked into his Mercedes motherboard and basically smashed the accelerator to the floor, because there's no way in which Michael Hastings or anyone on earth, even if they are intending to kill themselves in a vehicular suicide, they always pull their foot off at the last second before smashing into a palm tree. But not Michael Hastings. He slammed into that palm tree with his foot so far to the ground on the accelerator that the chassis flew out in a fiery blaze onto the street like I forget the amount of yards away. Anyway, I'm sorry. It's always bothered me that Michael Hastings was brutally, targeted and murdered in this way, and even the people closest to him seemingly just fell in line.
Didn't he have didn't he have an ex that died or shortly before that? Yeah.
That was the thing is he got remarried, but he had originally been embedded in I believe Iraq with his girlfriend, who was also a journalist. And yeah, I believe she died in a bombing or some sort of explosion in the conflict.
If I recall correctly, it looked a little shady.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of one of those things you're like, what the fuck's going on here? And then he died. So yeah. Weird shit there. I think we got a little off track. We were trying to somehow segue the new Epstein docs into billionaires at play in the Middle East and kind of creating this perfect little environment for them. And just, I don't know, kind of generally talking about the Pritzkers and some of these weird, I don't know, these weird, I guess, rich people and just the lives they live. I mean, it is astounding. I've kind of gone alluded a little bit to the Boys and Toys email from the Pritzker brother, who's not the Chicago mayor.
Thomas
the
Pritzker.
Other Thomas.
Yeah. He's the billionaire hotelier who owns Hyatt, right? The Hyatt chain of hotels, and far more than that. But I did think that, just considering the notion that those Epstein files regarding Trump were essentially held back due to being considered duplicates. But I saw an additional point that just kind of reinforced what we're discussing, and that was Epstein being named in this major drug and prostitution probe by the DOJ. That apparently Trump shut that down.
The DEA investigation?
Yeah, but the DOJ unit apparently was still probing into this drug and prostitution role that Epstein played from that investigation from the DEA. That's what it stemmed from, as far as the motivation for the investigation by the DOJ. And Trump shut that down. And this is recent. This is March 6th, right? So the fact that happened just before you have these newly withheld files that are then released, and obviously the slow roll is by design as well. And
did you know Epstein had an employee that worked for the DA, former employee? So it just
there was a leak and a hack attached to that story, right? Isn't that what happened?
Something like that. I forget.
Yeah.
I remember looking at the timing of when that person worked for him and the timing of that DEA probe or whatever, and it was I think it was within the same year. And so you're like, what the fuck is? I mean, I don't know. I would say I don't know exactly who this guy is. It's hard to say. Who knows? Maybe he retired 20 years ago, but it just seems suspect that you're like, oh, right around the same time we noticed he has a DA employee that was working for him. I can't remember if it was before or after or right around the same. But anyways, close enough to you're like, it kind of makes you wonder if there's something going on there. They just dropped the DA thing. So
no kidding, man. But I will say that the connections to the Pritzker family, not only in the Epstein files, but just in large, as far as the familial, just the genealogy that was seemingly attempted to be hidden as well, which was kind of strange considering Epstein's hidden genealogy and Peter Thiel's hidden genealogy and all these various prominent individuals in the political space who are it seems like they're rebranded and given the keys to an enterprise, right? And this enterprise necessitates the new role in which the character they will present themselves as and play, as far as fueling public perception, is the main goal. And so the main point I'm making is just that the Pritzker family and their connections are very much a reflection of the bureaucratic nightmare of the permanent establishment, which, man, it's just that's where I don't have a whole lot of hope in local elections, as much as people like to claim that it's the only way in which we can make a difference. Look, I'm open to that, and I'm not at all basically illustrating some sort of black pill scenario, but I will say that we have these fully inorganic grassroots movements that have been either created out of whole cloth, to essentially, I think, undermine any sort of, genuine and authentic rising movement that would have the legitimate good interests of the American people at heart. I don't think that's the case. And when we see the measure of bureaucratic, just the bureaucracy and how it kind of is facilitated and functions through just local politics and mayoral elections, and how much money is just corrupt money lining the pockets of these political puppets, and we're talking drug money, illegal trafficking money, and they're essentially just through these various political PACs and organizations they can still launder that money into the candidate's pocket. and influence their decisions and things of that nature. So it's just impossible for me to imagine when you have so many different individuals in the Pritzker family involved in politics at various levels of government. It's another perfect example of how much this system is structured and leveraged against us. And I think that it's just a tale as old as time, as they say, and it's something that people can't quite address the root cause on a daily basis, and it leads them into this unfortunate position. But Thomas Pritzker is the key individual and primary focus of the Pritzker family as far as the Epstein connections. But you have one of the wealthiest families in the entire U.S. They're on the top 10 of the Forbes America's Richest Families list since I think like around 1982, since it was listing the actual top 10. Holy shit! Sorry, my sound bar is freaking out, dude. Let me go turn it off. It's like searching uncontrollably for some reason. I'm gonna have to unplug it. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. Reminder, guys, if you want to call in, 1-833-722-DEAD, 1-833-722-3323. We'll be bringing up a patron here shortly. There's a bunch of y'all that like to lurk in the back there, like to have access to the private chat, and yet you don't ever come on and say hello. But we'll be bringing John on to give us a little bit of a religious take on the current apocalypse we're experiencing. But all right, let's get back to the apocalypse of little Afghani boys.
Right.
When the Pritzkers come a walking towards them.
Sounds good.
In their Abrams tank.
Yeah. Yeah. So insane. But yeah, and I do think just understanding a little bit more about the family specifically and the major, and I think the Hyatt Hotels Corporation obviously was founded by the Pritzker family, and they still largely own Hyatt as far as the members of the family. And apparently it's through this conglomerate of manufacturing and industrial service companies. And apparently, if you look at the Pritzker family's genealogy, they're of Jewish descent, right? Based in Chicago, Yakov Jacob Pritzker was the manager of a sugar factory in Kiev Governorate in the territory of modern Ukraine. At first, he lived with his family in the village of Veliki, Pritzky, then in Kiev. He and his family immigrated to the U.S. from the Russian Empire towards the end of the 19th century to escape the pogroms there. So it looks like there is some sort of, I just believe there is a reason in which the Pritzker family tried to rewrite their family history, allegedly, and shroud their true genealogy. And that's, I don't know, just something that I felt like was worthwhile and at least mentioning. But Thomas Pritzker himself is basically, he's essentially the cousin of J.B. Pritzker, who is the governor of Illinois, and I believe the former mayor of Chicago. And so they've had multiple political roles, various political roles that they've all fulfilled throughout their just throughout their lives, obviously. But Penny Pritzker is another individual who is a cousin, and she served as the U.S. Secretary of Commerce under President Obama, and was involved in many different philanthropic efforts, allegedly. And I think it was Jennifer Pritzker, who's a philanthropist as well, known for being the first openly transgender billionaire. And she has a strange connection to Ukraine, right? Because it seems as if she's the founder of Tawani Enterprises and the Pritzker Military Museum and Library. And apparently her military background is a retired lieutenant colonel. And whenever I looked her up, you look this dude up, honestly, just pull up the Wikipedia on this guy and put him on the screen, because it's the most ridiculous picture you could ever imagine. The name is Jennifer Pritzker, but Pritzker was involved in civic applications of just as far as like that included significant donations, right, to broaden understanding and support for what are termed as citizen soldiers. So how much of that just kind of sounds like a potential Gladio operation in its modern form, because she's the cousin of the current Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, and apparently former U.S. Secretary of Commerce Penny Pritzker. So she's also her cousin. But she has a strange story that I read through, where she says her most memorable experiences in life were in Israel in October 1973, when she witnessed events of the Yom Kippur War. And this motivated her to enlist in the United States Army on February 8th, 1974, and serve with the HQ troops in the B Troop 1st Squadron, 17th Cavalry Regiment, 82nd Airborne Division, based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So that is where she rose to the rank of sergeant, apparently. And yeah, she has another interesting connection to Ukraine that I found to be worthwhile in mentioning, which is that in 2024, she was awarded a badge of honor from the Ukrainian National Guard's Presidential Brigade in honor of her commitment to supporting Ukraine in its war against Russia. More than $5.4 million was contributed through Pritzker's personal efforts and grants provided by Tawani Foundation, with $1.3 million in cold weather gear for the Ukrainian National Guard and $3.6 million toward Operation White Stork, a quote, no weapons nonprofit organization led by U.S. veterans to provide individual first aid kits and other medical needs in Ukraine. So
With
anyway,
a name like Stork, I gotta think there's something else going on, but whatever.
For real though.
I was imagining you're about to lay out that one Playboy mission that they ran. You know what I'm talking about? That one?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide just kind of.
I was just saying I noticed the parallels between the two. The like
Exactly.
Stork. I'm like, what? But go on. Sorry.
No, I was just trying to kind of provide an additional layer to how just prominent this family truly is. And another reason why we should acknowledge this fact that it seems like their genealogy plays a part in their influence, right? And oh, what a concept. This is not a sort of meritocracy that people think it is in terms of public politics and the political puppets who seek to be elected and reelected. This is the swamp, right, that they've very much referenced and unfortunately become a part of, and never were not a part of that proverbial swamp, in my opinion. But look, this is Jennifer Pritzker. Yeah, that's the world's first transgender billionaire. Right, and cousin of the governor of Illinois, and also the cousin of Penny Pritzker, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce in the Obama administration.
It looks about exactly how I figured it would.
Exactly how you would think. So I just felt like it was worth, briefly mentioning that point. And now to the primary focus of the Pritzker family in terms of the Epstein connection, and that is Thomas Pritzker, who obviously was executive chairman of Hyatt Hotels and engaged in various business with, political interests, obviously at the heart of it, especially in Chicago. And you have these just significant political contributions that were made to Democratic candidates, and Republican candidates as well. So it's never isolated to one side of the political aisle, and I just think that's always important to highlight. But Tom Pritzker, executive chair of Hyatt, president of the Pritzker Family Philanthropic Fund, the Hyatt Foundation's charitable wing that supports the Pritzker Architecture Prize. So Epstein was invited multiple times by Pritzker Architecture Prize employees to attend their ceremonies since at least 2012. And according to the emails, apparently, it was April of 2012 when Epstein emailed Hong Kong businessman Desmond Shum, writing, "I will be in Beijing for the Pritzker Prize. Will you be there?" Now, you have multiple emails between Pritzker and Epstein, which seem to implicate that, and by the way, it was long after he had already been convicted, of child sex trafficking. So it's not as if this Epstein was outside of that window of of claiming innocence, I guess, in a way of not knowing his criminal background or his dealings in the network or whatever the case may be. But anyway, so you have an email dated June 6th, 2011. And this is the one you specifically referenced multiple times. And it reveals an exchange between Epstein and Pritzker. And the latter was in Central Asia. So you have Pritzker in Central Asia and Afghanistan at the time, right? And he says, I am in a remote valley in Afghanistan. It's my birthday wish with boys with toys. As if this is like some sort of underground organization offering up a sort of subscription model. Where have we seen this before? Where you can potentially, launder money into a child sex trafficking organization that will offer you various subscription model-based opportunities to maybe even engage in human hunting parties. You never know, right? Which we do know that for a fact, as far as the Delta Project and the Odyssey Foundation and John David Norman and the pink index cards that Paul Bonacci saw, that connect back to Dean Corll and the Houston murders. But anyway, the fact that he's in this remote valley in Afghanistan as a birthday wish during the conflict, what does that say about our elites exploiting these ravaged, war-torn areas? That they obviously supported the policies of deliberately destabilizing these regions and then exploit and leverage this to their benefit, not only financially benefiting from it potentially, as in the example we used with Prince Andrew, who allegedly, according to this investigation being conducted at this moment, he's illegally sharing intelligence with Epstein that happens to include how Epstein will financially benefit from the Afghan reconstruction project. So if we can somehow apply that to this strange connection and relationship he formed with Thomas Pritzker and the fact this billionaire on the top 10 Forbes list is out there in Afghanistan as a birthday wish with boys with toys. And then he tells Epstein, spent time with General Petraeus yesterday, and he loaned me a chopper, actually two, with one as a backup. Can't call till tomorrow. David Petraeus, obviously, is a United States general and the former director of the CIA. And so if we have this taking place, and then also including the sexual allegations against Pritzker specifically by the late Virginia Giuffre, first made public in 2019 after 3 years of court depositions, right? And Giuffre said in 2016, she had sex with an owner of a large hotel chain in France. This is suggested by many people to have been Thomas. Now, Giuffre also said she was sent by Ghislaine Maxwell to perform the sex acts and later took her own life, allegedly. But we all know that seems far more like a well-designed assassination of some kind to silence someone who is very knowledgeable about the inner workings of the network. But an additional connection. Oh, man, it's just ridiculous how many different... this is the perfect example and reflection of that bureaucratic nightmare that I mentioned before, because you have these emails stretching from at least 2010 to obviously 2 years after Epstein was convicted, right? I think it was soliciting sex from a 14-year-old. And basically, the year Epstein was arrested for child sex trafficking, he's having communication with Pritzker. It goes back as far as that, at the very least. And it seems like through their exchange of emails on at least 5 occasions, was once about Chicago politics and kind of like the inner workings of the Chicago politics and the corruption involved. And apparently Epstein or his staff made reference to Pritzker many different times in lists or scheduling emails, right? But they would be like nondescript lists. One marked Pritzker on a possible invite list for a seminar on money and power that also included Bill Clinton and Jeff Bezos. Then you have, I believe, in 2016, Epstein appeared to list his schedule for the week while coordinating plans with former Harvard president Lawrence Summers. It says, quote, Ehud in on son Pritzker Monday. You around? Dinner, Woody Sunday. The list is obviously seemingly referring to former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Woody Allen. And both of those individuals happened to write Epstein for his 63rd birthday in 2016 as well, so it fits as far as the timing. And then you have Pritzker's name appearing on another list Epstein sent to himself the week before he was arrested with the subject line, quote, list for Bannon Steve. So the final point on Thomas Pritzker and the Epstein connection is so Pritzker served as executive chairman of the Pritzker Organization and as a board of trustee of the University of Chicago, which another reason why I find it strange that we have the OSU sex scandal and we also have the, obviously we have the Penn State example that we can use very easily, but then you have the Chicago, the University of Chicago. And I just think that there's too many geographical representations of the network and their influence for us to kind of turn a blind eye to the potential reality of what's happening in Chicago. Just understanding, I think it was John David Norman was obviously involved. We have John Wayne Gacy, and the fact of the matter is whenever what's his name? Whenever oh my God, I'm forgetting the name of the individual who killed Lee Harvey Oswald.
Ruby, Jack Ruby,
Yeah, thank you,
Rubenstein.
Jack Ruby. Yes. So Jack Ruby, he heads down from Chicago, right? Obviously very much involved with the Chicago mob. And he goes down there to run obviously to run that restaurant and to run a couple of the mob's, just assets, business assets and things of that nature. But when he heads down there, well, somehow he conveniently gets an apartment leased by John David Norman of the Odyssey Foundation and the Delta Project in Dallas. He got his apartment in Dallas from John David Norman, who's a serial child molester and legitimately convicted, disgusting pedophile. You can look up his picture. I mean, this guy it's almost Jimmy Savile, in a way. He definitely isn't quite as, I don't know, let's just say, what's the term when they like to chalk it up to he's whenever you're, damn it, I'm forgetting all these descriptive terms at this moment, but whenever you act in this very strange, larger than life way, but in no way is it internalized as being normal or right. It's eccentric. Damn it.
There you go. Okay, I was thinking that word, but I was like, maybe
right.
that's, I don't
that
know.
was always the excuse, is that Jimmy Savile, he's just this eccentric radio disc jockey, and in reality, right, he's molesting children on live television and Top of the Pops, and the BBC's covering it up and silencing the parents, and this is just the way of the world. But anyway, the point to finish the Thomas Pritzker narrative, and then we can move on, is that you have the University of Chicago allegedly being the student newspaper of all things, allegedly being the first to report on the breadth of emails between Epstein and Pritzker. And Governor Pritzker also claimed that he didn't know Jeffrey Epstein. He didn't know that Thomas Pritzker knew Jeffrey Epstein, right? All of that, right? He tried to come out publicly and distance himself as quickly as possible. But you have a handful of emails discussing political events that were current and ongoing at the moment, including one about Thomas Pritzker's own family member, Penny Pritzker, who was the U.S. Secretary of Commerce for Obama. And this was in 2013, so it was relevant. Obviously, she's a member of the administration. And Epstein sent Pritzker a Washington Post article. It was about Penny Pritzker. And basically, it was about the Obama administration's cabinet because she was a nominee at the time. And it was basically understating her income by $80 million. And Pritzker wrote to Epstein, I clearly did something wrong in my last life to have to deal with this bullshit. And I warned her, which I thought was interesting. And then says, nice to see you. Please come more often, Epstein replied. Yeah, and clearly we don't exactly know what they're referring to in that context, but always fun, Pritzker returned and responded. And then you have in 2010, Epstein forwards Pritzker an email with a subject line that included, quote, nobody knows nobody in Chicago. And the email contained apparent analysis about the inner workings of Chicago politics and the relationship between Barack Obama and disgraced convicted former Illinois governor Rod oh shit, I fucked this up with William the other day too. Blagojevich, I think, something to that effect. But apparently there was a major scandal with the former governor of Illinois, and basically there was a direct relationship with President Obama. And so I found that strange, and it seems to obviously allude to probably a political kneecapping when Obama took the reins in his second administration, or 2012 or 13. That was I don't know, but that was probably just as he was going into his second administration, right? I don't know, but it was around that time. But anyway, and so the final correspondence is basically Pritzker says, these two, they don't know each other. They said they didn't. The email stated under a picture of Blagojevich, Obama, and former Mayor Richard M. Daley. So obviously it's in jest and tongue in cheek. They're acting as if, no, they had no relationship whatsoever. And then there's a response, and it's rule number 1 of Chicago politics. The email reads, no matter what you see, hear, or do, you don't know anybody, and you don't know nothing. P.S. If you pass this on to your friends, don't forget, you know nothing, and they will know nothing. Pritzker didn't respond, according to the documents, but the last documented exchange between these two was in February 2019, when Epstein sent Pritzker an email asking, news? You are news. I'm quiet, Pritzker responded before discussing a chairman's dinner to discuss trade. Sassy was told, I'm a witness against Trump, Epstein writes in possible reference to former U.S. Senator Ben Sassy, who was part of the Senate committee overseeing the investigation into Epstein. And this is the final point, quote, others were told I am a witness against Clinton, so my credibility needs destroying. Unlikely, smiley face. So either way, I just think the Pritzker family has just seemingly eluded any sort of attention or accountability of any kind, and I don't see Thomas Pritzker stepping down. I don't see them taking a major financial, as far as just a financial consequence fiscally, in terms of their net worth taking a hit because of their connection directly into prolific pedophile network. But my God, that point about Afghanistan, I mean, how are we not to apply that directly into Ukraine, and then seeing Jennifer Pritzker's involvement with Ukraine and not think they did the exact same thing there? Why do you think it's the hub of human trafficking?
Yeah, no, there are all sorts of emails that looked like they were doing stuff there for sure. One last thing before we bring in a patron, one of the patrons, to chat with us for a moment. Kind of, I guess, in this Epstein thing, it's just one little factoid. We could probably cover it real quick, but it does kind of seem to tie into sort of the Pritzker talk. These politically connected, wealthy individuals, kind of dipping in and out of politics or kind of in business as well. But apparently, there's something interesting that hasn't been mentioned a whole lot with the Zorro Ranch. But by the way, they've reopened the investigation. I think they finally made headway today and actually doing some sort of something at the ranch itself. So I covered that this morning. But, I mean, not really a ton to say, on reopening the investigation. I mean, I don't know, kind of skeptical of really much anything coming of it. But you never know. I mean, I'm kind of surprised every now and then with some of the information coming out. But just thought it'd be interesting. You told me something that blew my fucking mind. No one's really talked about who owned it before Epstein. We've talked a little bit about the Don Huffings guy, who's now the running for comptroller in Texas with the TPUSA endorsement. Also is conveniently now making some sort of like Bible camp or some shit in the place or on the Zorro Ranch. Apparently he's already begun construction, so that could cause problems. I'm not sure. But the previous owner before Epstein of the ranch is of significance that is somehow escaped notice from many. So who owned it before Epstein?
So this is how I originally was tipped off to actually even go and look to see who directly sold the property to Jeffrey Epstein and who the former owner was. And so I figured we could just watch it. It's a brief video, but it's worthwhile. It's just kind of tapping into the ongoing investigation at Zorro Ranch that has finally been allowed to take place, where they're allegedly searching for bodies, right, that were essentially buried, and they had been tipped off by various individuals who were either victims or also neighbors who were well aware of the fact that they had a lot of different ongoing construction that was very strange and seemed to be subterranean in nature, as far as that they were basically building the underground structure, and there were a lot of different neighbors who were speaking out and going public with what they claimed they thought was happening there, and that included, I believe, people who actually even worked on the property. But anyway, but they did drop that little strange smoking gun in a way, that this property itself had some kind of long-standing ties to the permanent establishment, let's just say. But anyway,
New Mexico authorities launched a search of a notorious secluded ranch previously owned by pedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein on the morning of March 9th. The New Mexico Department of Justice announced in a statement that it searched Epstein's former Zorro Ranch at the direction of Attorney General Raul Torres, alongside local and state police. Torres reopened an investigation into the ranch, where the convicted sex offender once entertained guests 30 miles south of Santa Fe in February. An original case opened to investigate the secretive outpost was closed in 2019 at the request of federal prosecutors in New York. State prosecutors have since argued that revelations outlined in the previously sealed FBI files warrant further examination. Epstein has never been charged with criminal wrongdoing in New Mexico, but the state attorney general's office said in 2019 that it had interviewed possible victims who visited the massive ranch. New Mexico state legislators also established a new commission last month to look into whether the desert ranch was used to facilitate sexual abuse and sex trafficking. This search is part of the criminal investigation announced by the New Mexico Department of Justice on February 19th into allegations of illegal activity at Epstein's ranch prior to Epstein's 2019 death, the state DOJ wrote in a statement. Authorities noted that they have had the cooperation of the ranch's current property owners, who have allowed access to the search. The deceased child sex trafficker bought Zorro Ranch in 1993 from former Democratic Governor Bruce King.
What was that? That's crazy, right? Like, I did not know this until I just watched this segment, accidentally, kind of, in a way, but I just figured that maybe it would be relevant to potentially presenting this case in a way on the show. But I had no inkling that obviously I would be introduced to the fact that a former governor of the state is the individual who owned the property before selling it directly to Jeffrey Epstein. So that's interesting, and it's something very much worth noting. And I don't know how it's gone under, just as far as it's gotten no real attention or footing in terms of media coverage. But one last time, because I want to remember his name.
From former Democratic Governor Bruce King, building a sprawling property that
part of an
included
agricultural and political dynasty.
Interesting. Yeah, that's basically the most.
Speaking of the king,
part.
we are joined by the king, John Black, patron of the show, giver of money. So here you are. What is up, my friend? Pleasure to have you joining us. I think you want to talk a little bit about the but the religious implications of all this stuff going on around. This is the great Shaitan or Satan or whatever, right? This is the whole the grand Pumbaa that we're about to experience. What's up, John? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good, brother.
Good. What's up, dude?
Not Jose. Austin, you remember I showed you that book that I was going to dig into this week due to current events? It's like 500 pages long. Well, it's actually 600 pages long if you include the bibliography. Wow. So I dug through it, and it was originally published in 1958. So to give some context, the idea of, and I won't go too deep into it, but the idea of pre-tribulation rapture, premillennial dispensationalism was what co-opted evangelical Christianity, and it started back in the 1890s. And then the first Zionist Congress was, of course, in 1897, and it was led by a guy named Theodor Herzl. I'm not sure who that is. And so I'm reading this book. It's called Things to Come by an author named Pentecost, oddly enough. And being that it was written in 1958, this would have been rather new theology at the time for people, because dispensationalism didn't really become a thing until the late 19th century. And funny enough, I think most people that have went down this rabbit hole will know the name John Nelson Darby and Cyrus Schofield. And in this book, in the Bible, there are 4 major covenants. There's the Noahic covenant, the Abrahamic covenant, the Davidic covenant, and the New Covenant. When this book, it skips the Noahic covenant, and it adds the Palestinian covenant. The promise of the Palestinian covenant concerning the possession of the land of Israel, fulfilled by Israel in the millennial age. And all of the scripture references that are in this book fall back to the Abrahamic covenant, which has been fulfilled. So all of this theology is repurposing covenant theology that has already been fulfilled. So the Zionists are leaning heavy on this doctrine that co-opted evangelical theology, and it really didn't take long for this to take roots into theological study. Literally, the Cyrus Schofield's Bible, which is really just a King James Bible with some study notes and some commentary. And, like we all remember, God, I hate invoking his name, but Tucker's interview with Ted Cruz, where he mentioned Genesis 12:3, which has zero to do with current events. So anytime you take the context of the Bible and you put it into current events, you're basically just filling in the gaps with what you want the Bible to say and not what the Bible actually says,
brother.
So
generations, dude, this is literally what I described it as when I did my Zionism episode. Generations of fundamentalist believers deceived and corrupted through sophisticated methods of predictive programming and deliberate misinterpretation. Modern-day apartheid, colonialization, barbaric war crimes, and ethnic cleansing disguised and justified as divine prophecy, required by God to facilitate the impending rapture. Righteousness cannot be achieved through reflexive moral indignation. I just claimed that we have to pierce through the fog of war once and for all, right? And essentially reject these double standards, because that's the ridiculous notion of interpreting these things in such a low frequency just mentality. It's impossible to not be led by the nose and just essentially deceived into facilitating the dystopian outcome. It's sad to watch.
Well, the thing about it is, and I've debated this among myself in my head, whether or not dispensationalism and dispensational theology has been good for Christianity from an evangelical standpoint, and there's no question that it has. But the co-opting of the Christian religion has been something that has really bugged me for quite some time, because the Bible doesn't say any of this. The scripture reference in this book to this Palestinic covenant, which is nowhere in the Bible, by the way, is all taken out of context. It is all 100% cherry picking a verse from this chapter that has nothing to do with anything, cherry picking 2 verses out of this chapter that have nothing to do with anything. And if you put together a catena of verses that will, belabor the point that you're trying to make, and you do it in such a way that it makes sense, it's all right to link a bunch of random scriptures together, but this is just complete slop, and it's nonsense, and I disavow it as a Bible believing Christian. Jose, at some point we're going to have to get together and maybe do an episode on cosmic geography, because even going back to Pete Hegseth weaponizing the Bible, which right. I'm not for that. I will never weaponize my religion to fulfill an agenda. I will explain the Bible to people and let them make up their own mind.
That's how you have to do it, man. And I saw it. Did you see Namrock's meme, bro? That applies directly to this, it was just hilarious to me. It was about the boomers, right? Essentially, convincing us for generations that Vietnam was this unjust conflict and war that was entirely avoidable and immoral, and yet they're attempting to justify and convince others to support the ongoing genocide and conflict and regional conflicts that are brewing in the area, and essentially this point hyperactive. But yeah, it's just insane to me that this is what we're dealing with as far as the ideological prisoners unable to wade through this information and deliberately keeping their heads in the sand, because it's far more sophisticated than this black hat, white hat oversimplification that they're falling victim to. It's again unfortunate, because it leads us, we're streamlining into the next world conflict, right? And I legitimately think that's by design. World War III is feeling inevitable.
And it kind of has to happen right now. I mean, Netanyahu, from a geopolitical view of today, Netanyahu's term's up in October? And
not if he's dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's been rumors. So I don't know. When was the last time anybody saw him? So
when he was here, I guess. I don't know.
Who was that? There's this war correspondent fag. I think his name's Scott Ritter or something. He's we
pulled him up earlier, bro.
Okay, I missed it. He's total pedo. Legit, like a legitimate.
We cover that too.
Pedo. Yeah, and so I've been watching war, but let me make 2 points and then I'll bring it in for a landing. So weaponizing scripture, Pete Hegseth quoted Psalm 144, which is in the 5th book of the Psaltist, and it is a Davidic psalm, and it is about praising God for and his glory and mercy in essentially two battles. One of them was for Canaan, and I'm not sure if you know where Canaan is at today, but that is Gaza. And Moab, which I'm not sure if you know where Moab is today, but that's Jordan. And it's really interesting when you go back and you look at the Old Testament in the actual original language, because a lot of the themes from the Old Testament are directly derived from Canaanite theology and the Baal cycle. Like if you take Psalm 91, for instance, there's a lot of people love that psalm. There are words in that psalm that are translated into English, but the words themselves are names of Canaanite deities, and the words are translated as what the deity is over. So, just so people kind of can understand this, like Hades would be the god of war. So Quteb would be the god of pestilence. So when you see pestilence in Psalm 91, that's a direct correlation to a Canaanite god. So all throughout the Old Testament, if you look at it, it's really about the Jews struggling with making polytheism monotheism. And there's a whole struggle in the text that goes back to Deuteronomy 32. And I could talk about that passage. I could talk about 2 verses in that passage for probably 2 hours.
Maybe
I know we don't. Yeah, maybe next time. No N-bombs, by the way. But
No.
Wow.
But Pete Hegg says weaponizing scripture. I completely disavow
Austin
that.
dropped the only N-bomb today, but go on.
Yeah, wow.
I heard it.
Out of character, man.
But
I got a little excited.
So
I figured you would.
So weaponizing scripture is definitely not a thing. And the co-opting of religion, like today, if I brought up a new idea, like suppose I just had a brand new idea, I would, submit it as my theological thesis paper. My professor or my sponsor would go over it with me, and then I would present it in front of, 3 people at the theological seminary. They would either accept or reject my premise, and I would get my doctorate based on that. And then there are all kinds of conferences where you go and people will present their theses and their papers. And most of the time, new theology gets discounted. It takes a while for people to warm up to new ideas. With this dispensational premillennialism, it literally went from late 19th century, in the 1890s. William Blackstone was a theologist in 1890, and he was a big proponent of this. Of course, John Nelson Darby in Europe was a big proponent of this. He actually gets his idea of the rapture from a girl named Margaret MacDonald, who was just a bedridden, middle-class girl who had a vision of a rapture. And then a guy named Tim LaHaye wrote some books about this rapture. And that's where most Christians are getting their idea of this all Christians disappear, literally from fiction. Yeah. They made it into 2 movies, one with Kirk Cameron and one with Nick Cage. And
Left Behind was so big, dude. Do you remember when?
And there's about 10 books in that series, and
I read a bunch of them.
And I honestly wouldn't mind punching Tim LaHaye in the face. Just he deserves it. And so Darby gets this idea of the rapture from a bedridden girl that had a vision. Who else has visions? People that are demonically possessed. Mm-hmm. Whatever. So not a prophetic girl, not trained in theology at all, just a complete nobody.
Sounds more like some Kabbalah shit to me than anything. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So the way this lines up with, and I'm going to need Matt Walsh to just go ahead at this point and make the What is a Jew documentary, because when I use the term, like, I don't want to come off as anti-Semitic, because there are so many different kinds of Jews. It's like, it would be like, saying all black people are a monolith, and they're really not, I mean, don't get me wrong, I use the N-word, but I'm not a racist. I just use it because it's taboo, it's funny, and it hits hard,
Hell yeah.
But when you say the word Jew, nobody has any idea what you're talking about. Are you talking about an ethnicity? Are you talking about a religion? So when I use that term, I have to use it broadly because that's the way it is. So the Zionists co-opted the name of Israel, and Dave DeCamp even tweeted out this week, and I think this has been tweeted out 1,000 times. Well, if I name my son Jesus, does that make him the Messiah?
Yeah.
So this is just the whole way that the religion has been co-opted by Zionism really was inorganic, and it was very rushed through, and it is completely diluted the scripture as someone today would study it. And this really old book is missing a lot of things, mostly because it's really old, but it's missing a lot of things in a lot of context. But just the idea of adding in something that's not in the Bible to support your view of the end times is deplorable, and to wage a senseless war, a useless war, and take, at this point, we're probably around 4,000 lives, even though we don't have any rough numbers. I think that's just kind of where the estimate is around right now. Over, co-opting religion is disheartening to me, because this is not the book I spent my life studying. This is not the God I serve. This is not anything that Jesus would endorse, and it's completely terrible. And I really just can't stress enough how much that anytime somebody stands behind a podium from the government and preaches that this is God's war, they have their general or their troop commander or whatever, whoever's leading their mission, tell them that they're doing God's work by going and killing people, is completely wrong. It's completely wrong. So I think
true,
yeah. So
I saw someone put it in the framework. I forget the exact language they used, but it was basically like, beware of anyone who is telling you or influencing you or trying to convince you of the notion that Christians are essentially devoted and obligated to serve God by basically traveling. How far away is Iran, right? Traveling thousands of miles to a foreign land and claim that these are the enemies of Christianity. And it's like, I think it was the way that they put it was essentially that it's far more applicable to be of the mindset that if you're a Christian, you're surrounded by not enemies, right? You're surrounded by people who you hope to influence in the right direction and only hope the best for and have their best interest in heart. And if you're not ethically opposed to regime change operations and forever wars, then yeah, you've been seduced by the devil. You've been dancing with the devil for far too long, and that is what ideological subversion is. And so once again, you've been deceived into becoming complicit in legitimate war crimes And I do share your disgust as far as the misrepresentation, which is by design. It's intentional and it's deliberate. And for people, to not aptly address this and internalize it for what it is, it's just another unfortunate position that we find ourselves as the minority. And thank God that we are, though, right? Because if I didn't have this natural ability to at the very least remain skeptical and question the official narrative, who knows where I would be. And we're living in a pedophile occupied government and international child sex mafia. And if we're not aware of that by now, we're not paying attention. And so, yeah, I don't know, just like all these various overlapping connections to the Epstein network, man. The only point I wanted to make was that Leon Black connection. I was reading through the FBI intake form, basically, of the investigation into Leon Black, and clearly he's a major, prominent figure in the Epstein network. But what did he do as CEO of Apollo Global Management? He ran, I think it's important for people to realize, if they weren't already aware of this, Lifetouch, right? Happened to be owned by Apollo Global Management because they essentially owned the parent company. And Lifetouch is a major provider of school photography services in the United States, photographing millions of children each year. The company obviously is not at all taking any sort of accountability for their ties to Leon Black and the ownership through some sort of parent company known as Shutterfly. But the point being is that Black paid Epstein around $170 million for financial advice between 2012 to 2017. And if you're not concerned with the level of integration of this underground pedophile, organization that is clearly embedding themselves and infiltrating various opportunistic windows and avenues to basically, what do they do with those pictures of your children after they flood it through the finders and basically find out the schedule for your parents and your protectors and realize when the opportunities of the child being alone in their home would be provided to the network, and then you utilize these photographs as basically again a catalog of who choose your own victim. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. So anyway, the international child sex mafia, my friends, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But
And
right.
one of the
John, I gotta let you go. I gotta go to bed, and I gotta eat some dinner too. So, but it's late. I don't want to get stuck in another rabbit hole. Call in again, and I'm down. I'm dead serious. Hit me up if you want to do an episode. We'll do one. But with that, I do gotta get out of here. We're late. It's late. It's late where I'm at. I'm not on the West Coast. If you guys want to stay, did the internet just poop out? Are you for real?
No, you're good, brother.
You're good.
You might not be, though, on your end. I don't know.
Did the internet for real poop out at me right at this moment? As I'm pulling the reins.
You're frozen, brother.
You want me to plug your show, Jose?
Why don't you give us a plug, John, before we get Jose returned?
I'll do the Nudo Shave Company and thank Jake.
He doesn't even plug Nudo anymore.
Thank Jacob Winograd of the Biblical Anarchy podcast. I'll go ahead and hit them all. I don't need no plug. I'm just a random guy on the internet that knows stuff.
We got to let him plug for his own sake, brother. You're back, Jose. And never mind. He's frozen again. Son of a bitch.
Okay, well, Jose would like to thank his patrons that support him at the $20 level. Jacob Winograd of the Biblical Anarchy podcast, just some random guy. People that have names that are really, really silly. You can support him by following the Morning Dumps weekdays at 11-ish, depending on his schedule.
He's plugging away, dude.
And follow him on Twitter at
Are you back, Jose?
At Tower Gang Jose. Hit up his Patreon at No Way Jose 2020. You can get in for as little as $2. But don't do that. Pores, join at the $5 to $10 level. That way you get access to the exclusive content of the exclusive content from Jose's Patreon behind the paywall. He usually keeps 3 to 4 episodes back there, and then you get exclusive call-in to his show already did on Tuesday night with Austin from the Underclass podcast, and you get the opportunity to call in and be just a random guy on the internet that knows things like me. So
appreciate you, brother. Jose, are you back for sure? I don't think he's back. All right, John, I'm gonna have to finish the plugs alone, but I love you, brother. I'll catch you in a second. But well, I'm not quite sure. Oh shit, my bad, Jacob. I'm not quite sure if we're going to get our brother back for the end plugs, but definitely go support him. Obviously, you know this, and you guys already know to check me out at the Underclass podcast. For sure, subscribe to the Rumble and every other podcatcher that isn't fully reliant upon YouTube and the levels of extraordinary censorship that they tend to, implement and just, in this very dystopian way, push forward and obviously silence the dissenting voices. But anyway, nothing but love for you all. Thanks, John, for putting the plugs in for Jose, because we're down a schizo bro, obviously. Hopefully he'll make it back, but I doubt it. So you guys just check out The Morning Dump. Check out No Way Jose. I think he at least Brad texted me and said that Jose was scheduling him for this Thursday. So I know they're going to have a conversation about the influencer industrial complex and Candace and Ian Carroll, maybe even, I'm not sure. But either way, I'm sure that'll be a fun conversation. I think I have a few things coming up, but either way, I'll just leave it at that. And nothing but love to you all. Definitely, I think we just did whatever this is, episode 48 last night. So check that out on the Patreon. And beyond that, I love you all. I appreciate you showing up, and I'll catch you guys next week.